Oh, it's always a pleasure to be back in Kigali and in Rwanda, and to be on the panel with such a distinguished membership with Mon Président, like I always say, here with us. Listen, I think three things. In one of the reasons I'm here is while we're at UNECA, and I think I see Maktar Sek in the background there, but when we were at UNECA and there was COVID, when we were trying to understand where the COVID was spreading and how it was spreading, we tried to sort of get a data set together, and we couldn't get the data set. We couldn't get anybody to sort of crunch those numbers for us. And we finally ended up in Dubai, and we were told to pay $1 million for, every month to be able to do this. We're sort of a UN institution. We didn't have those kinds of resources. And so we sat down and we decided to create an AI center. And so we created the first African AI research center in Congo, Brazzaville. And we got to your question in terms of infrastructure. We were able to get then sort of the first supercomputing computers into that university, thanks to the generosity of the president. He gave us a whole wing on the university, and that is now growing. And essentially, I think this is where when you talk about partnerships, Minister, we're able to then bring partnerships together and hoping that, big shipping industry can begin to use that center to do research to help them manage their movements. But I think it tells us two stories. The first one is there has to be a will. There has to be leadership. Leadership in this case, for example, there was a leader there who was able to say, I'm going to give you the university, I'm going to give you the space, let's go ahead and do it. We had partners, private sector partners that said, we will give you I think some of the first high-speed supercomputers out of South Africa that came onto the continent went there. So we were able to do that. Now it's the funding. And yes, I am now sort of trying to figure out how we do funding for the continent. I think there are resources out there. And one of the new sort of, there's a number of different resources that one can do. We've seen sovereign wealth funds. There's a lot of sovereign wealth funds on the continent. Rather than maybe every sovereign wealth fund trying to fund AI in their economy, we have the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. I never sort of miss a bit to talk about it. But maybe we can mutualize some of the sovereign wealth fund resources and create one center and then build out of that. What we need today are those high-speed supercomputers. Of course, Strive was here yesterday and is here today, and we know that he's now partnered with NVIDIA to do the first 100 or 3,000 GPUs on the continent. Yeah. It's amazing, and that's solid. What we now need is, now that we have the GPUs from Strive, we need the cloud computing. We need people to begin to design and write those models for us. And so some of the infrastructure is human infrastructure. We need, Zindis of the world. We need many more Zindis that have the engineers that can do the design. And a lot of times when we talk about infrastructure, we forget that we need also to fund the knowledge, the human capital, and the capacity to actually drive and power those machines. I think one of the biggest conversations today in AI is that the AI is programmed by humans, and so essentially it responds to human reactions. And so if all the programming is being done out of our continent, we will ask questions and it will give us answers that are not necessarily unique to our environment. So we need that. There are three kinds of funding. You have the sovereign wealth funds. We have what we call development impact bonds. Development impact bonds are bonds where the yield fluctuates with the impact and with the result. Right. There's more and more of that happening. Singapore is doing it. We also see right now with NVIDIA tokenization, right? NVIDIA has just gotten into a partnership with BlackRock. They've launched a $15 billion fund with Elon Musk actually as well, to be able to understand how one can use tokenized assets to fund AI. But I think the message there is that we have to be realistic with the funds. We have to start somewhere and then build. I think sometimes when we have too big ambitions, we get disappointed very quickly. We're getting into probably a global slowdown. There is not going to be 100 billion there for Africa AI. But if we can at least start with 10 billion that we then leverage and drag in and pull in partnerships, I think we can go a very long way with that.
Okay, excellent. So lots of messages there. We agree. It's a whole ecosystem.